Everybody, welcome to part 2 of every book that I have read this year, January to August. I'm very excited for you guys to see this video. It took a lot of time because I had to pull all the books down and organize them and then tell you about them. And then I wasn't planning on it, but after editing, initially it was still over 50 minutes. So instead, to save me my sanity, and to make it a little shorter for you guys, I'm going to split it up into 2 smaller videos. So this is part 2. These books, I don't know if you would have remembered me talking about them in any vlogs, because a lot of them are older. And are more from the late winter and spring. But I hope you enjoy the rest of my 2022 book list. Remember, we're only in the middle of August, so who knows how many more that I have to read or will read. So I hope you tag along for the journey. Okay, we're done with the first stack. We have to move on to the second one now. Oh my god. I missed a book. I apologize. So, between Darling Girl and Land of the Firebird, Ugly Love is in there. Ugly Love is by Colleen Hoover, obviously. I mean, do you not know who you're dealing with at the moment? But my sister has Ugly Love right now, so that is why I forgot to tell you about it, because I didn't have it. My mistake. But that book, holy moly, ugh. I feel like that's all I can say about her books. They make me need to remember that these characters are fictional and they're not real and they have no impact on my life. And fun fact, Ugly Love and November 9th, there's characters that overlap. So you get to see how some characters are doing in November 9th. So that's really cool. I like it when authors can still show different characters, but other ones also still get their own story. Alright, now that we've fixed that, the next book is one that I also don't have. It was loaned to me by my mom's boss's husband. It's called Portrait of a Killer, and it is about Jack the Ripper and a potential identity of Jack the Ripper. I love Jack the Ripper. How many times can I say Jack the Ripper? I just think it's so fascinating. Again, I love Victorian England. I love the 19th century. It's just such a cool time. And such a dramatic time too. Next up, we have this. This is called La Belle France, a short history. Now tell me something. Does that look like a short history? Because let me tell you, it's not. It's very long. Funny story, actually. I don't know if you can tell, but I was cleaning one day, and before I got a new bookcase, I was just making piles of books that I had finished, and I had set them on the floor. And so I bumped into the books and I ran this one over. So I don't know if you can tell, but on this page, there's a giant rip because I ran it over. This literally details French history from the beginning, all the way to when France wasn't actually France. When the Romans ruled it. It's so cool. I loved this. And it's a mammoth book. Even though it's tiny compared to the Land of the Firebird, there is a lot going on in this book. But the history nerd in me loved it. I need to read more books by him. Alright. Next up is The Glass Hotel. This one I actually really enjoyed once I got to like the middle of it. It is so interesting. I don't even really know how to explain it, but it's just like written so well. Next up, we have this. This is called Elizabeth and Mary, Cousins, Rivals, Queens. This details both sides of the rivalry between Mary, Queen of Scots, and Queen Elizabeth I of England. It is definitely, I don't know what my face is doing. I think it's because I'm getting hair in my mouth, so I'm making expressions because of the hair in my mouth. I apologize. This is definitely more of a historical biography. It's interesting just to see both women being the focus. Next up, oh my god, I'm apologizing again. Between the Glass Hotel and Elizabeth and Mary, there is another book. It's called Beautiful Darkness. The reason I forgot it was because it was a school library book that I checked out in like March. So it's been a minute, and it deals with like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, there's a lot of Civil War references because it's set in like really middle of nowhere, South Carolina, like deep country. And it's like supernatural. Like, these people are like crazy. It kind of reminds me of like the abilities of the Silvers and the Red Queen, but they're more supernatural. Like, they can talk to ghosts and summon things, and they're a bit more evil. Epic fight scenes, stubborn characters. That's Beautiful Darkness. And then Elizabeth and Mary. And then a book that is mine, but that I don't have, is Where the Crawdads Sing. My sister has that right now. But that recently was just turned into a movie. The movie was fan-freaking-tastic. The book was fan-freaking-tastic. You literally don't know what happens until the second to last page. It's like a murder mystery, and you think one thing the whole time, and then the author just spins it all in its head. Fabulous. Next up is the Tsarina's Daughter. This is set in 1700s Russia. It follows Peter the Great, and Peter the Great dies, and his wife, Catherine the Great, becomes Tsarina of Russia. And then Catherine dies, and there's a little coup, and the niece of Peter the Great becomes Tsarina, and she is Anna the First. And then there's another coup, and Elizabeth the Great becomes Tsarina of Russia. And it's Elizabeth's whole story. And it's so good. I love Russian history. I love the Romanovs. I love the whole, like, just Russia as a whole is such an interesting culture. What would you know? Come on, people. Do you think I'm playing with you? You know what it is. Colleen Hoover, Reminders of Him, her newest novel, made me sob my eyeballs out. Okay. A lot of books just fell, but luckily not a lot. So we're still gonna just go. We're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Oh my god. Wanted to sob. Just broke my heart in like all the good ways. Like, ugh. My mom didn't sob, and my sister and I looked at her like she was a psychotic person, because MJ and I both equally lost our minds. Like, I read this in 4 hours. She gave it to me, and then she meal prepped with my mom, and then I gave it back to her. And then I bought it for myself. Colleen Hoover is a master. Before She Was Found. This one is interesting. It's a thriller set in Iowa. Who knew? A little convoluted. psychotic characters for sure. Don't really know who to trust. Don't really know who to like. But it's set in Iowa, so points for that. So I promise this is the last one for the time being. This is the very first Colleen Hoover book that I read this year. I read Verity last year, but this was the one that started us off this year. And it was so, like, emotionally raw and poignant. My mom and I think between the three of us, my mom, MJ, and I, this is definitely not, like, our favorite book. But, like, it's still, like, a really good book. There were just some times that annoyed us, and we didn't really like the main guy that you were supposed to root for. But now it's becoming a movie, so we'll see how the movie pans out. I always want to give everybody a shot. Next up is why did I just say Land of the Firebird? It's because there's fire in it. This is called Firekeeper's Daughter. This is a fun fact. I actually have it signed by the author. The author is Native American, so you learn a lot about, like, Native American cultures. And, like, in the book, the main character's best friend is shot by her insane boyfriend, like, in the first, like, 5 chapters. So you learn a lot about, like, Native American funeral rituals and how they approach somebody dying. And it's just super interesting. And there's drama and thrillers. And the freaking DEA is involved because there's, like, a drug heist and, like, a drug ring that's going on the reservation and with different people. So, so good. And also hockey. Hockey's in there. Probably my least favorite book of the year. And I say this with, you know, a heavy heart. Wait! Skipped a book again. I keep grabbing books without looking at the list because I know that I pulled them out in order. But I forget about the books that I don't have, like, that I checked out as library books or got from somebody else. So this, I know where we are. We're in my week of spring break. Because I read Gone with the Wind, through spring break. That book, like, I know it's controversial, but honestly, it's one of, like, the best books I've ever read. And it's so thought-provoking, and, like, I'm a sucker for fashion, like, fashion in those decades of, like, the Civil War and everything was just so interesting, and the way that it was described was so cool. That book, it's one that I will probably remember, and I'm hoping to get my own copy soon. Now on to my least favorite book of the year. This one, The Paris Apartment. It's supposed to be a thriller and, like, a mystery, but I just, like, there were so many things going on. I just didn't know what the author wanted to do with it. I was so confused. And I thought it would be cool that it was set in Paris. But it's just not. And there's too many webs going on. Like when you're a thriller writer, obviously you have to weave a web and, like, connect everything in some way. But there's just too much going on. And that's all I'm going to say about that. All right. One Italian Summer. Loved this. One of my favorites. I love this author. I've read In 5 Years, which is by her. This one follows a girl who goes to Italy after her mom dies. But then, like, her mom, like, shows up in Italy and they, like, get to have this trip together. It's so good. There was something really special about it and really beautiful. And obviously, as you can tell, I'm on, like, an Italy kick and a French kick. And just, you know, Europe in general, apparently, this year. I loved this. Next up, we have another classic. This is Death on the Nile by the one and only Agatha Christie. It's set in Egypt, so like more adventure and more travel on a boat. It's definitely Clue, before Clue became cool. Next up is A River Enchanted. This is by Rebecca Ross. This is the first book that I've ever read by her. This book is actually going to be a duology, so there's another book coming out in December called A Fire Endless. And I'm so excited. This one is like Scottish vibes all the way, magical and like music and just so cool. She is a beautiful author. She's a great world builder, and I devoured this book. We're on the last pile. So this is the first book of the last pile. This is On the Way to the Wedding. This is a Bridgerton novel. Bridgerton is a show on Netflix, and it is based on these books. This one is probably my favorite one. It is the most dramatic, and like I feel like just all the characters are interesting. And this is actually the last book. I read the Bridgerton books in pretty close proximity to each other. So this is the next Bridgerton book. This is the 7th Bridgerton book. And this one was like interesting. It was like another like Agatha Christie and Jane Austen novel. And I really liked all the characters. I think they're funny. You got a lot more of Lady Jamboree, who if you don't know who Lady Jamboree is, you're missing out. I think it's a really, really good book. I don't know what I'd rank it. It's like, it's not bad by any means, but like, it still could go up just a little bit. So probably like 3 or 4. Honestly, all the Bridgerton books are really good. Some of them are just have more interesting plot lines than the other. The 6th Bridgerton book is called When He Was Wicked. This is definitely the most sexually explicit book of the whole series. It'll be curious to see what they do with when it comes to this book on the TV show, because there's a lot going on. It is a spicy novel. It is leaning more 50 Shades of Grey than any of the other ones. Not as intensely, but definitely more on the scale of, you know, romance. And it's also a little sad. The beginning is rough. Freaking 19th century medicine, like, screwed everybody over. This is a version of A Christmas, and I believe there are 2 Christmas themed novels in Virgin River. This one is not my favorite one, just because I feel like the characters were kind of randomly thrown in and you really don't hear from them, or at least you haven't up to the point that I've read. And I don't know, I would like a little more explanation. And also, you didn't get to spend a lot of time with other characters. That, you know, I feel like this was more like a standalone book than part of a series. But that is just my opinion. It's still good. I don't know, I just wanted a little more from it. This one, I am most curious to see how this will play out in the show. Because there's a lot of things that are currently on Canvas that are like, ooh, that's gonna be different. Because Eloise in the book falls for a person who has already been introduced in the show. And in the book, his wife dies. His first wife dies. And so, but like the character who plays his wife in the book, in the show, I'm like, but I don't want her to die. So I don't know what they're gonna do with the book. But this is probably another one of my favorites. One, because there's a hilarious scene between Eloise and all of the Bridgerton boys. And 2, Eloise is just such like a no-nonsense character. And just, you know, is totally brutally honest. And I love her. Next is a reference book, pretty much. This is called The Book of Criminal Minds, and it's literally just every criminal story in, like, history that has been written and recorded. This is called The City of Ember. There are 4 books in this series, and the fun fact, the day that I read this, we had gone to Ankeny to Plato's Closet, and we got a flat tire, so I was able to finish this before we even got home from shopping, because it took so long with the flat tire. I felt very accomplished that day. And this one is, like, weird. Like, they live underground, and you'll find out why, but, like, it's interesting. Okay, this is the last Virgin River book. This is technically the first one that I read this year. This one is called Whispering Rock. And based on this book alone, it's dictating how I want a lot of the series to go, because Bree and Mike are the main characters in this book. And they get together, and they're really cute, and I love them, and I root for them in, like, every single book, and I want all the world for them, and I want them to just be at peace and in love and happy. And that's not how it's going in the show. So I want them to get together so bad. I'm just praying that it happens. But at least I have them in book world. Okay, next up we have Still Life. This is like the first book of like 20. And this is a debut novel. And it was so good. It follows an inspector in Canada as he tries to solve a murder. And the way they solve the murder is so unique. Like, it's insane. And I was not prepared for the ending. It was just really great story. Excellently written. Probably, you know, part of my top 5 for books this year. Next up, we're getting down to the wire. Magnolia Palace. This is actually set in a real mansion in New York. It is an art collection now. The Frick collection. And so it's a mystery, and it kind of details, you know, it uses actual historical fact with a little bit of fiction to make for an excellent story. I really enjoyed it. Also, I feel like historical novels like this can get really boring, but like this one definitely was not that. I will say I have another one by the same author. That one wasn't my favorite. That one definitely bored me a little bit, but this one is like a total 180. Next, we have Project Hail Mary. This guy wrote The Martian. I've never really been into science fiction, so I'm glad this was my first delve into it. And the main character actually like becomes best friends with an alien. And there's a lot of science talk in here, but I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like the overall plot was really good, and he is a phenomenal writer. I feel like I'm playing Jenga with my books now, just to like figure out where they all fit. The Maid. This one is a mystery, which it actually doesn't turn out to be a mystery at all. Like, it's supposed to be murder, and when you hear the actual story, it's not murder. But what's really cool about the main character is that it's implied that she's like on the spectrum, but you never know for sure. Last Bridgerton book, first one I read in the year, was An Offer from a Gentleman. Cinderella vibes. I mean, I don't know if you can tell by the single slipper that's on the cover, But that's what we were going for in this book, and they definitely delivered. I mean, evil stepmother, stepsisters, forbidden love, unknown identity, except instead of a slipper, all he has is a evening glove. So, I loved it. Okay. The second book that I read this year was called The Grace Year. And this one, really good. I wish there were a sequel to this. I'd love to know what all the characters were up to. But essentially, like in this version of the world, all like when girls turn 16, they get sent basically into the wild to become like to get rid of their magic. That's what they say. It's magic before they become like adults and get married and whatever. So the grace year is what they call that. And it's twisted, my people. There's some crazy things that happen in this book, but so good. I devoured it in a day. The final book is Good Girl, Bad Blood, the second book of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. It's good. The last one is definitely like top tier of fabulous. But this one, like, it's just a chill read. Easy mystery. Like, if you want some suspense, but you don't want to be, like, terrified out of your mind, but, like, still has, like, some dark elements and, like, a cool plot line, this one. Because there are some crazy things that happen in here. And there's, like mysterious identity and, like, serial killers and just really cool. So, and guys, with that is every book that I have read this year so far. Actually, I need to clarify something. I finished filming this video, and then I proceeded to finish 2 more books. So I've read The Family Upstairs, which is by Lisa Jewell, and it is a crazy ride of a thriller mystery, like, just insane. There is a sequel that is out, so I have the sequel on order for next month, and then you will be proud of me because I finally finished Station 11. We went back to Owl Falls yesterday, and on the drive to and from, I managed to just sit there the whole time and read this book. And once I got past the first 100 pages, it was so good. And that's the same author who wrote The Glass Hotel. So her books kind of start off a little slow, but you just gotta wait a little bit because they pick right up in pace. And it's so cool how everything is connected to each other. So I just needed to pop in, tell you that I've read those 2 books. And I now have no books that I'm currently reading. I have a stack of books that I need to read, but none that currently have bookmarks in them. Go me. Thank you for joining me on this little excursion down memory lane. But I hope you enjoyed. It was fun to see all the books that I've read thus far. But now I have to go put them all away again. So, until next time.